Hi, and welcome to the Believing Better series. This is day 6, I think, 5, 6, something like that. And my guest is Monique. Monique and I have quite a bit of experience together. So we're going to try to weave this in a way that really works for you and inspires you. And we're going to try to pull out the parts that are going to serve you because we really have a lot. Monique has completely transformed her identity, her life, her partnership, her career, and even re-identifying herself as a parent. Like everything in her life has been turned inside out. And this whole new perception, personality, identity, would you say, Monique? Monique is, let me tell you a little bit and then I'm going to come, but she's an integrative massage therapist, which means she integrates the mind-body connection as a massage therapist to help people heal chronic pain or release chronic pain, illness, whatever's coming up in their physical body. She does an access to releasing that beyond the mind, beyond massage therapy, beyond the hands. So welcome, Monique.
Thanks for having me. So,
who's this new person? Tell me how you were when you came in.
Yeah. So, you and I have known each other for a few years now.
Yes.
Going on like 6 now? It seems like 5 or 6.
I'm not even sure.
It's been a minute. So yeah, when I met you, I was like a firecracker in a bucket. Life was hard. It was never fair. All of the real life situations hit me, and I had experienced them. And so I had all the proof, I had all the evidence that, life is tough. Like shit happens, and it's always something. And if it's not one thing, it's another. And when it rains, it pours. And it came in threes, and like all of these little things that were implanted in my brain throughout life, through experience, through society, through family, through ancestral fears and generational patterns. All that good stuff. Just absorbing in all the information, and it was just all in my subconscious brain, and just back there hanging out. And things would happen, and it would be like, oh, I've got to spend another $100 on a tire, or the refrigerator went out, or just life. It was just life, but it was
just the way life is.
But it was so gross to me. It was so unnerving, and I would get so angry, and I would get so upset about things, and it was just like the walls would just crumble around me. It was so dramatic. And now I look back on those incidences and I'm like, wow, you did not have it together at all. Like everything hit a nerve, and it was painful, and there were consequences for everything that I did. And it was just these really, really long days, these moments of time where I was like, why am I even here? What is this life about? I was in such a dark place inside. And it's interesting because so many people that knew me still don't identify with even what I was doing. So obviously I was faking it till I make it, right? Like I was putting on a facade. I always busted through. I always got shit done. I'm a generator by design. So that makes a lot of sense now that I understand that part of me, that I always had the pressure to do stuff and get it done. And I did, but it was like I took the hard road. I took the long way. The lessons hit me over and over and over again. And in my mind, I was a victim. Something always happened to me. I was abused. I was neglected. I was mistreated, which are facts. I mean, this is really what happened. But my perception of it at that time was very different than how I see it now.
Would you say that you were like being in the victim of it was just the way it is, and then bypassing?
Yeah. And it was even like, Well, there's a line of authority to handle these kinds of things. That's not my place to stir up, trouble. It's not my place to press charges. It's not my, it was still like I was eating this victim mentality and like not being able to digest it. I would just like shove it in my mouth and like, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. This happened to me. And it was very relatable to people. I mean, they understood, they had my back, they were on my side. And, that support was comforting to the unconscious brain, oh, they get me, they understand why I behave this way, it justified some of
Mhm.
my actions, and that was one of the hardest things for me, was releasing the blame and taking responsibility for my own stuff, my own part in all of these plays, my own role in my marriage, in the stuff. I had to take
Yeah.
responsibility for my part, and whew, that was
Something else
hard.
you and I have in common is our lack of security. And so we had so many backup plans. We went from one
Oh yeah.
certification to another, and this is going to be the one, this is going to be the break, this is going to be the thing. And it was really what was running in the back of our mind, is that like, I need to take care of myself. I need to be protected. I need, like, things are going to fall apart. So I need to have a backup plan. And it
Yeah,
was just a constant.
always backup plan. I mean, I had like A, B, C, D, E in my back pocket at all times, because I had to be prepared. I had to be prepared when they acted up, when they did something wrong, right? Here's my he, she, they, right? And every time they did something to me, every time my company made a new rule, it was against me. Every
Mhm.
time the person in front of me took the last loaf of bread, it was never my chance. I mean, it was just like, it's so gross.
That's how
But
you
it
did a
was
great job of painting that picture.
it was literally like how I thought. It was like, even the girl in the grocery store, her buggy cuts me off. Like, I can't even turn the corner in peace. It was like so much shit. It was so heavy and it was layered, thick layered.
Because it wasn't even fighting with you. I knew I was fighting with limiting beliefs, and
Man.
really just like creating that safe pocket at the same time as like really challenging your brain to let's think of this a different way. And you're like, you don't understand. We're like a hornet, man. You were so mad.
I know. I was really angry for a long time, and I know now that that anger was grief, that anger was pain, that anger was trauma, but I didn't know how to process it in my physical body. I didn't know that I could feel it and it wouldn't kill me. Right. Like when we started getting vulnerable, I was like, shut down, walls go up. I mean, I built a fortress. Had a moat. Nobody was getting across. There was gators. Like, no, ma'am, I can talk to you from over there because you're not safe here. And so that was just an old identity inside of me that believed that story.
Yeah. Let's talk about what happened. Like when we repress and we build up that wall, that fort, and we go into protection and it materializes or manifests in our
Mm,
physical body. Do you remember when this was first going on and you broke out with that huge rash, your entire
yep.
body? You were like doused in geranium,
It stunk so
not getting
bad.
out of the bed.
Yeah. There's been multiple stories like that, and when I look back on the timeline, it was like every time I was in resistance to processing the truth or the pain or addressing, because that's what we do. We mental bypass, we thought bypass, we sweep it under the rug. Oh, it's not a big deal. It's okay. They get to do what they want. They have that right, and we try to sugarcoat it and throw a little glitter on the shit like that, and then live our life. And 2 months later, something happens and it bubbles up inside of us, and oh, it's okay. We put a little sugar on it, we push it away, band-aid, go on with life. These are triggers.
Yeah.
These are bubbling up inside of us because they need to be healed. It needs to be addressed. And I was a master at shoving it back down. I mean, I was over 200 pounds at one time. I had shoved everything down in my body. I had physical pain, frozen shoulder,
Oh my God.
discs and vertebrae out of
TMJ.
alignment, the TMJ. I mean, I lived with my finger inside of the underneath of my jaw, just digging in, grabbing my scalenes, all this area that we're not supposed to touch. I'm just like, because it all hurt so bad, and it was like, if I gave this the attention, then my brain didn't think about the problem, right? If I went and I started trying to release the pain, it was the mental disconnect.
Yeah.
The physical pain shows up as the mental disconnect because I could not handle the reality of what was spinning in my own head. It was so hard. It was so much like, and I get it. Like people say this all the time. Oh, you don't understand. You don't know. And I'm like, I do. I so do. And uh, oh,
So
God,
stop for a second. Hold on. I want to really talk about this because it's such a big deal. When it is physical, it is real.
I know.
And it takes all of your attention. And then it's like this happens like, oh, I know, but then you don't really know. So
Yeah.
the reason we know you don't know is because you keep looking for a solution. You had so many gadgets like to get, like as all massage
Still do.
therapists, right? I think we need to talk about this
Oh.
because it's really what you do. You had a toy and a gadget and a brace for everything, just like I did.
Yeah. Yeah. I had had so many injuries, so many accidents, so many surgeries, so many random pains that were from nothing.
Yeah.
And they traveled. And every time I went to the doctor, they did another test. You know, I just posted the other day about my hand surgeries. I had went in and I had testing done on both my hands, and the surgeon says they're blown. You've been doing hair for, I don't even know what it was at this time, 17, 16 years, something like that. And he's like, yeah, dude, like you need massive surgery on both hands. So I scheduled them, did the first one, went in, had it done. Went back a few weeks later to start on the second one. He redid the nerve testing on the second hand, and he said, there's no damage. It's gone. And it was literally just from about probably 4 weeks of going, what did I not want to carry in my right hand that created this pain? What was I holding on to that was not mine? Right? What was I in resistance of letting go? What was I holding, carrying in my hands? And as soon as I started kind of processing that kind of information, I mean, I have the test that shows no, and I have the first one that shows whack. So, I mean, in 4 weeks.
I think it's such a disservice that the practitioners, even a lot of holistic practitioners, suggest that there is something wrong with us. You know, this is higher than this is longer than this. When they get off the massage table, I've had this happen with massage therapists, and they start pointing out all of the things that are faulty, and that just drives it deeper. So when the chiropractor is like, oh, it's all jacked up and you have, like that is the disservice. I don't know if I know it's unconscious, but I don't know if it's intentionally part of the business plan to keep getting them to come in. But oh my God, if I want to change anything in this world, it's to change that, how we as massage therapists talk to our clients differently and help them to see the root cause, not necessarily that outer. Anyway, listen, this is the problem. Monique and I are getting to this conversation and stay, but I want to come back to the interview. So
no,
that's what it was like before.
I completely agree with all this. But yeah, and it came from exactly like you said, the thoughts, the ideas that something was wrong with me, that I needed to fix a problem, that this was the solution this time, this pain medicine, this nerve pill, this muscle relaxer, right? I mean, my story was I was on 9 prescription medications that I put into a Ziploc bag and brought to the sheriff department, and they thought I was crazy as a nut. They were like, you need all of this medicine because you shouldn't be turning it in. And I'm like, no, I'm actually really okay. I don't need this medicine. I'm going to try it a different way. I'm going to see what happens. I'm open to exploring this route, you know? And whenever I, started looking at the stories that I'd heard, when I was in my 20s, I had multiple cervical tissue removals. Yeah, because I had cervical cancer cells all in there. And so multiple times they had gone in and scraped out and cut out, and I had done ablations and just crazy stuff, and the doctor kept saying, well, your medical history shows, well, your mother had, well, your grandmother had, well, your dad had, and he's looking at this medical history and he's using this to judge and compare my body and what he's seeing. And in all fairness, that is what he's trained to do, right? That is his job. But my brain heard, get the uterus out, get the cervix out, get the cancer out, you're going to die. I mean, all of these things that were just rushed in from what he was telling me had to be done, right? And so by the time I was 35, I had the whole surgery. Get it all out of me, be done, because God forbid I die from this, right? Hello, who gets to choose when I die? Like, what do I think I'm doing here? You know, I don't have that kind of control over my life with death, I mean, unless I choose to exit. So it was like all the ideas from the doctor and all the information that was given, fed into the fear of me. And then I go research, and you guys know about that World Wide Web. It's good stuff, right? Get on Google, start putting in your symptoms, and it'll pull up all kind of information for you. And then we dig into that, and then we're like, oh, what supplement is great for that? What oil is good for that? What medication are you taking? And then all of our friends on Facebook feed in, right? And they all give us this information, and everybody believes they're helping. I mean, they believe they're helping, and this is beneficial. And it might be for some people, but what my brain hears is all the problems, all the issues. I see everybody else's side effects from the stuff, right? More fear, more worry, creating more confusion. And my body continues to shut down because I believe that I have this illness. I'm putting all of this information into my head, and my thoughts create my reality. So there we go, right? Add more to it.
So we'll talk about this was the coming in, right? It was all suggested, and then it's materialized in your physical world. And
Then it
it was your
appeared.
relationship. You were a people pleaser, you were the codependent, they were always taking advantage of you. They were all right. That was the story. This is for all of us. That's how it begins, is the recognition of that. And then we fight it because we don't want to let it go. We're like, no, it's true. It's real. I can give you all the evidence.
Yeah.
And it's really to get back. So let's talk about the transition of that's how you came in. And then you are starting to catch on, and you're realizing through this inner work. Let's talk about the in the middle. That when that resistance is there, and what was coming up for you, so that the listener can understand.
It was very uncomfortable. It was almost to the extent of painful. I had information for years. Like, this work is so deep. It's got so many layers, but it's so simple. And it's like, how long have I seeked out healing and peace and calmness in my body and balance, and I looked back, and it was 18 years ago was the first book I bought. But I didn't understand how to integrate it on this level. I did not know how to make this work in my daily life. I could get on meditation. That was fantastic. I could read a self-help book. It was great. But until we started working together to actually put this into a daily walking life and use it in daytime, in 3D life, right? Like in real here time. That was very different for me. And it was very scary. And when you would say get vulnerable, in my mind, all I saw was all of my trauma coming up. Like, that's what vulnerable flashed before my eyes. That was my definition, was all of the pain, all of the grief, all of the trauma. She wants me to go in and address all that. I did that before. It wasn't fun. I did it with therapy. I did it with counselors. I did it with medication. I did it in the hospital, right? Regression, go into all your past stuff and pull it up. It was scary. It was scary to go to that space, and to think about going to that space again, automatically, like, wall went straight up, and I was like, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. And so I was like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm fine. More sugarcoat, more under the rug, right? Because that was my body's natural addictive behavior to go to, just to bottle it up and push it away. And when we first started working together, it was frozen shoulder. Remember, I had that big knot in the back of my shoulder, and we got on the phone one day, and we were just talking through it. And, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Where is it at? Is it movable? How long has it been there? And I was like, damn, this has been here since I was like 13 years old. Like I had just flashes of memory coming in, and it wasn't scary memory. That was the cool part because it was a super safe environment. You were holding the space with gentleness and compassion, like what a mother would hold a hurt child, that had just cut themselves. It was so gentle and sweet, and I hadn't had that type of attention in a very long time, or I hadn't allowed myself to. Right, I hadn't allowed myself to be nurtured in that way in many many years, and so it was like, oh, I won't die from this. Okay, we processed that. A couple of days later, more stuff came up and more stuff. And it was about that time that the rash started appearing as well. It was just like several weeks of just little things here and there. And it was like every time we would do something, I was like, oh, I have more room. Oh, my neck moves, oh, wait, my back bends different. Like, when did that happen? And I started realizing how much physical trauma was stored in the cellular memory of my body. And every time we would, go into not even the story, but what was the perception or the belief that was created, from that space, from that incident. Like, it was like, oh, it made me believe that what I had to say wasn't important. Oh, it made me believe that my needs didn't matter. It made me believe that all men were mean and bad, right? Like, it made me believe. And it was just these little situations that are just life. But it was the conditioning and the programming and the beliefs behind them, Kim, that were so aggressive and so so much for survival. And they kept me safe for years. They did their part. I don't regret my timeline at all. Like, that's what's really cool about it now, is that I can look back on all of this and it's just a beautiful story, that brought me to this place here. And like, I love all of it. And I wouldn't change any of it ever, you know?
It's re-identifying the story we tell about ourselves. And I want to clear the air here because it's not like when you said that, like going into all that, that's the perception of the mind. When we say the
Right.
word trauma, our clients believe that means that we're going to take them back to
Yes.
second grade. It's not. I promise you, the stuff bubbles when it's time, and we
Mhm.
just deal with the here and now.
Yeah. And it's
We
just
don't
a
have to go
perception.
back and change because it was just perception that put it
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And you saying it that way, I think is so important because like you could have gotten away with it had it been
Oh,
another
yeah.
therapist or another person, but because I had experienced it myself and gotten through it, I was like, you're not going to fool this trauma brain.
I
This,
know.
this is a beast here. I know all the tricks because I've done them all.
And that's why I work with clients that have trauma too. I mean, that's the thing, because I know I've been there, and like I know when I see the eyes on the computer screen, like where we're at, there's this way to process this information, to work this step, to make it clean and easy in our favor, and doesn't have to be painful or scary. And it's like, as soon as I understood that, I was like, here's all my junk. I'm like, come on, trigger me, bring it.
It's so funny you say that because that's what happens.
I know.
It's takes like I'm like a chisel, right? It's like chiseling the ice around. And it's like that part is so intense. But then once they receive that liberation, just a tiny touch of liberation,
Oh,
then it's like, do more, do more, do it again, do it again. I'm like, hold on. We don't have to create the circumstance at all. I
I know.
promise you, life will bring it up exactly when it's time because we choose to trust life. So I
Yeah.
love that too. How would you, I'm reading my questions to try to stay on track here.
Okay.
How would you, or what would you say was the hardest part of the experience? Because you've
Mhm.
completely rewritten your relationships, your career, your who you are.
Yeah. Again, it was my own bullshit. It was addressing myself and taking the responsibility and releasing the blame, because, man, it was so easy to blame somebody else for the way that I felt because they did that thing. Right. And that was the part for me. It was like, no, Kim, but they did this. They did this. And you're like, right. But what are your thoughts about it? And I'm like, well, I think they shouldn't have done it. you know? Well, and of course, if that's my mentality, that's all I'm going to see. We're only see what we choose to see. And I chose to see the things that always kept me safe. They are not safe. They are dangerous. They are mean. They are hateful. They are bad. Stay away from that. Right. Go to this because they'll give you what you need, whatever that is. Right. And for me, it was like being out of the moment. So it was drugs and addiction and whatever I could buffer to not feel reality, you know, because again, I couldn't handle that brain. But it was because I was so good at blaming other people um, and just not taking responsibility. And you know, that's something that I'm still working on. Even just the perception of what is my responsibility and what is not, you know, and where do I use that and where do I not, you know? Just so it was about me getting very raw with myself and saying, what part did you play in this circumstance? You know, and being willing to say, yeah, I did that. But then I had to process my guilt and my judgment of myself for all of the actions that I went through. Right. And that was even more hard because then I had to like say, oh man, forgive myself. Ooh, that's hard, you know, um, because there's this big thing about that too. You know, we all want to give unconditional love and forgiveness and blah, blah, blah. That's all of our ideas. But when it comes down to the wire, truly unconditionally loving someone, I mean, I thought I was there years ago and I was so wrong because when that space opened up in my mind, I was just like, I love everybody. I love everything.
except for you who are out to get me.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
And this happens with all of you guys. It's, you know, it's that point where it's, why do I have to do all of the work? Why does it always come
Yeah.
down to me? Why do I have to be the one who takes the higher road? That is, guys,
Yeah.
just so you know, that is victim mentality.
Yeah.
And it's very human of you. And we have been conditioned by the human state of being.
Yeah. Well, and again, that was my thing. I was a victim. So even as I was doing the work, the residue was still there, right? Like it would still hit me every once in a while. And that's where we had to go in and go, okay, break it down. What did I hear? What did I see? What did that mean to me? Where did I get this information from? Why do I believe that? Is that true? Can I prove it? And by the time I got through that whole thing, and it was like, none of this is legit. This is all your bullshit.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I take it. It's mine, you know? But I had to do that so many times to see my pattern, to see my way, you know, and to understand that it's my perception of them that's creating the judgment and the comparison. It's my perception of the situation that's getting altered or flawed because of the way I'm choosing to see it, you know? And
So
it's not
you've
just
been,
about bypassing, but like really addressing, is that belief mine? You know, they weren't. So many weren't. And I was just like, whoa.
so you've been doing this personal development journey since 2002. So you read the book, you didn't know what you were doing, you were kind of
Mm-mm.
into it. And then let's zoom that all the way to almost 20 years, right? Like 18
Yeah.
years. What has made it different being a part of the integrative coaching or the work we did together or self-healing masters? Like if you have 20 years of experience, what has made this last 2 years different?
I know. It was mind blowing to me because I had this information. I've had this information for years. I did not know how to put it together to work for me. I was using it as, well, that's nice. Louise Hakes, you know, cured all her cancer. How great for her, you know, or, oh, how awesome, you know, Joe Dispenza fixed his back. Oh, how great, you know, this first book I bought was called Healing is a Choice. And it was 2002. And I had just divorced my husband and I had two toddlers. I was scared shitless. I didn't know what was going on. You know, every choice I made was life or death at that moment. And I read this book and I read it and I read it and I read it. And I could almost tell you the words verbatim in the chapters, but I couldn't absorb it because my brain was in survival. I was in fight, flight, freeze. I did not know how to create the stability and grounding to get the information into my brain. Okay. So we fast forward, you know, 18 years where we are here. The difference is someone holding the space for me, someone showing me that my thoughts truly created those feelings inside of my body, and doing it in a practical way, like walking through it, and just breaking it down in the manner that we use in the punchline was life changing because, again, I had this information. I have journals that I've written my entire life that I'm very specific in. I'm jealous as all get out. I can't, and my body hurts. Like I literally wrote out this information. Like, oh my God, I'm so scared to do this tomorrow. And my ankles started acting up. My knees are hurting today. My neck froze, my shoulder. And I'm very detailed about what was going on in my life. I'm so angry at my husband, blah, blah, blah. I'm so irritated with the kids, blah, blah, blah. My mom did this, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, when I started flipping back, I was like, mother F, holy F. It was just like,
Yeah.
and
You were in the awareness, but you didn't have the perception or the framework to implement. And I think that's the integration, of like first of all, we got to recognize that we're thinking and saying it, but the problem is it's unconscious. So the work starts like there's a click. And once that click happens that one time and you get that liberation, that door is open. You don't have to go back to the past. You never have to go back you never have to tell the flipping story again, especially not the way you've been telling it. Right. And so the framework like makes sense because you had the foundation, you had the understanding about the mind body, you had already had evidence, right? And heard stories, as many of these listeners who follow Joe Dispenza or follow Bruce Lipton or, it's like Louise Hay, it's like, it's so annoying though, when you're listening and you hear it. I remember stopping my bike, like, no, Louise, it's not as easy as changing my thought. I had to uproot the belief because that thought didn't have the perception because of that belief. And I remember that so clearly. And that's, I think what you're saying now is when I figured that out, like that was that.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, like, I remember I was listening to a podcast, one of the podcasts, and I'm not even sure which one it was, but I pulled up into the grocery store and I stopped and I was just like, oh, it was just like, ooh, it all hit me. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Oh, it's all my thoughts. It's all. And I was just like, it like in that moment, it was like this huge light bulb. And I remember texting you from the parking lot and my phone was barely even working. And I was like, please go through, because like, I've got to like say, like, I get it. Like, I just, like, I saw it. It was like fireworks, mind blown, literally. And in that moment, I was just like, oh, this is cool. Like, I got this now. And from that moment, it was, everything has been uphill. And we've had a lot of stuff happen. We've had a lot of life happen, even in the last couple of years as I've done this work, and I know how to do it, but I address it differently. And when I'm in a space where I'm freaking out and I'm on fire, I reach out, I try to create stability, I create that grounding and presence, and then we unpack this story and we navigate around what is going on in my brain and what do I hear and what do I see. And I do the steps, I journal out, I get cleaned up. I know exactly what I need to do to understand why this triggered me.
You have the tools to unravel and to work it.
Yes.
So I want to ask you something that's not on that I haven't asked, and that is, because I feel like where we are, and you're so used to working with me now that, in that space, that how does it feel to you when you are expressing this work and someone is trying to fix you or make you feel better or rationalize it,
totally like a toddler, like freaking out. I am throwing a tantrum. It is bull in china closet, baptizing a cat, like you name the weird animal freaking out. Like that's what it feels like inside of my body.
Someone's trying to,
like clawing under my skin to get out because it is so uncomfortable. But again, I look back at my timeline and I look at these great teachers that I've experienced throughout my life. I worked with a polarity teacher in Louisiana named Alice. She's brilliant. And about 10 years ago, I met her for the first time, and she looked at me and she said, "You're not supposed to be this big." And she like grabbed my body and she was like massaging my waist. And I was like, okay, and she's like, "You have all of this stuff." And she would touch point in my body and she would just tell me, like, "There's trauma. We need to let this go." And I was like, duh. But we did a little work together, and she opened my mind to the possibilities of some things. And then, I started working with craniosacral therapist, Jen and I, and then we started working with Reiki masters and, all of these things. And I kept doing all this work. I got yoga certified and like all of these different things to create this environment for myself. But I was looking for everything outside, and it was like, once I understood that it was just inside of me and that all I had to do was click my perception and work on my beliefs and, judgment and comparison. That's one of the biggest lessons that I learned out of this was it really is all just judgment. And if I take that away, there was no problem, you know?
I respect the modality so much. And so I want to spend a moment here because I've been certified in all and done them all and,
Yeah.
since my 20 something years. And the beauty is, guys, when you are seeking these holistic alternatives or modalities, they're beautiful. They really work. But the goal is to get you present in your own body, all of them. Doesn't matter if it's someone laying hands on you or someone touching you or someone manipulating. It's all to get you in touch in the physical body. It's to get you back inside of yourself, because when we've had traumas and stuff like that, we have ejected ourselves. And so it's like we have to create this safe space in the nervous system first so that you can come back in, because the nervous system being on fire is actually the defense that's pushing you out. And I want to talk about that with Monique because it was such a big deal, because she was so highly trained in understanding and certified and had finally come to that point where it's like, I know all this shit and it's not working. Could you help me? That was the moment. And so I feel like there's a whole population of people who they know it all. They've experienced it all. They've done all of these things. They got 20 years of whatever kind of like we did. This process, the framework, and the ability to do it yourself. That is what we're teaching, right? It's to get you inside of yourself. So it's where the problem is, we want that practitioner or that modality to be the answer, as if there were an answer or as if there were a problem other than we're living in the human experience. We're humanly conditioned. That's it.
Like pain is a thing. There's going to be trauma. There's going to be, I fell down the stairs. I hit, my hand closing the door. Like things happen. We cut ourselves with kitchen knives, right? Like there's actual physical trauma that occurs in the body that we need medical attention. There are things that we need to see about. Why don't we see about our nervous system? Like, why don't we give our nervous system the attention that we give a broken finger or a sprained ankle or a headache even? We go in and we hurry up and we take the Advil to get rid of the headache, but we don't know that the headache is caused from overthinking and trying to process our life right now. And the energy has nowhere else to go. So it's bubbled up and it's like, hey, I'm right here. It's the indicator light. It's the warning light on our car. And we're just like sticking a cool little picture over it or a little saying like, no big deal, put a Band-Aid on, you'll be fine, and
just the gas light. It's no big deal. We don't need to see that. All right. We're at 38 minutes. So I want to be mindful of the audience and those who are watching the replay. Like I said, we could do a series just on this Q&A every single week. So the last one was, what was the hardest part of the experience? And what would you tell the person? So we're going to kind of look back to when you first started. And I see you as this little scared kitten that was like, the hair would stand up when I would even get close. Right. And so it was like that gentleness to be able to I felt like it was I'm still in awe and honor of you allowing me to hold that space for you. Cause it was so impactful, and humbling. Humbling is the word that comes to me with all of you who've had the deep stuff to work through, and really being able to stay with it when your mind thinks it's right. It's that. So I want to thank you for that. So what would you tell the person who is that little, they don't even see that it's that inner scared little child. They see it as, but it's here and it's here. You don't understand. I've been, and the doctor told me, and that person who is sitting here that has tried all of these things and thinks they know it all, thinks they already know, because that's where you were.
Oh, I was there. I totally was there.
what would you tell them? Like, I know you know, and there's more, and they're like, what would?
I would tell them that we've never done it from this angle and this time and this space sequence from this identity. We've done it 1,000 ways from the old identity, with the old beliefs, with the old programming, with the old patterns. And I get it. That is why you create the same predictable patterns, because we're living in that past mentality. And so every time people go, I've done it, I've tried that before, Monique, I've done that before. And I said, have you ever done it from here with me, right here? Like, come to this moment. Let's process it right here in this time. And you tell me the difference.
Mhm.
And it's immediate. They're like, oh no, I've never done it from this identity, without the ego, without the pain, without the story on my backpack, right? Like, that was the thing. I had so much story in my backpack. So in that moment when we started working, it was like, no, 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 I've done that. I tried RTT. I did the yoga. I did all the stuff, right? I've paid so much money to counselors and therapists, and I paid so much money for meds, and so many hospitalizations, and and even in my parenting, with my kids, I've done it that way. I've done it. I've tried it. I've tried it. I've tried it. But it was the resistance in me to get quiet, to calm the toddler, to calm the angry, painful person that had been created before. I had to go in and like give her a little love and say, it's okay, little Monique, you don't need to freak out anymore. Like, I got this, and it was like, as soon as this identity was cleaned up, she could go take care of all the other stuff that was left for the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, right? I am capable and able to move forward. She wasn't. She couldn't. She needed that to keep her safe.
Yeah, and
But when I got here, I understood the difference. And I think that was a big part for me, was to see that was the ego and the old identity that was fighting for her life and survival and adrenal fatigue. And poor thing, she was a wreck, you know, but I have so much love and honor for her, now, because she got me here. She was tough.
well, and because we want to honor and integrate, we've been taught to throw that part of us away, to
Yes.
relieve, to get rid of her, to throw that bitch
Ah,
in the ditch, like really get. And it's like, no, there's a time to throw the thought in the back seat and seatbelt it
mm,
down, and like, okay, you can think, you can whatever, and I'm going to keep going. But
yeah.
the gentleness and the compassion of loving that scared part of ourselves and bringing her home,
Yeah.
not throwing her away,
Yes.
integrating her inside.
I've seen so many people say, fake it till you make it, or, just let that go. Just leave that part of your life. It didn't even happen. And I'm like, fuck, it did. It did. I have scars to prove it. It totally happened. But they're not bleeding out anymore. They don't cause me disarray. They don't hurt me anymore. I don't use them against other people to keep me safe, because I trust the universe and I trust this process. And I can reach out, and I have a container, and I have people that will support me. And, that is huge. No matter how angry I get at these girls when I'm in my toddler tantrum freak out, they just keep asking me questions until my brain goes, oh, there it is. That's the one. That's what needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And so, for me, it was just buckle up, buttercup, like, I'm going in, and it's going to be a ride. And it was great. And it's going to be so great. Keep moving forward, right? Like, I'm so in love with this work. I never want to stop. I'm such a dork for the brain. And, again, I knew all this stuff. I knew the brain and the nervous system backward and forward. I mean, I made a 4.0 in that class. That was my jam. But to put it into a daily practical life of the nervous system and understanding that is, whew, that's a big difference,
Mhm.
because those beliefs are the only thing holding you back. They really are. And if we can just peel back those in a gentle, kind way and let you see that they're not real and they're not yours, mm, The world just opens up for you. It's so pretty.
How often do you implement or use the punchline approach in a day or in
Oh,
overtime?
now it's almost automatic. Like
Mm.
now, because I've rewired that part of the brain, it is almost automatic. Like there are very few times that I have to stop and go, what's going on? What did I just hear? What did I just see? What did my brain interpret? Right? Because that's what I used to do to learn this, to integrate it. That was my way of processing the information on a daily basis. And at first it was a little much. Like it was nonstop all day long. Every time I felt my heart beat fast or my hands sweat or I clenched my jaw because someone was making too much noise or in my way or doing something they shouldn't have done, presence, unveil, navigate, presence, unveil, navigate. It was like pun, 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 pun all the time. And I mean, on a daily basis, several times an hour in the beginning, it was a lot. It was a lot.
It's really training our brain to have that anchor to go to
Hmm.
whenever you're feeling frazzled, that you don't
Right.
have to depend on someone else outside of you. I mean, we have to do a lot of this work one-on-one and together in groups at
Right.
first, but it's really just to teach them the tools. And
Right.
sometimes that's 6 months and sometimes it's 6 years. Who cares?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
cares?
I mean,
What would you say about the work that we're doing in Self-Healing Masters to someone who was like,
ooh,
just kind of, and then we'll
so
end.
good. Yeah, yeah. So, I was already into a little bit of human design and stuff a couple years back and didn't really understand it, understood the basics of it, but not a whole lot. Um, but even now, as I learn more about myself, it's so accepting. Like I'm so accepting of all my quirks and all my weird things that I used to judge myself about, the fact that I talk a lot or that I eat really fast or that I'm always running around like a crazy person, that used to kind of bother me. I would almost judge myself for the way that I functioned and the moves that I did. And now I'm like, oh, that's actually just my energy. That's just who I am. And so, even looking at that stuff, I'm like, this is who I'm made to be. Like, I'm made to be someone who does certain things, and I'm okay with that. And I love it. And so I'm accepting it, and I accept myself in that manner. And then also, I've learned to use it in my favor with my husband and my children because I've explored their stuff a little bit now. And, as we layer together, some of our channels are like powerhouses when we combine in the right way. And so the things that used to really irritate me about my family, now I'm like, oh, this is good. We can totally like take care of this with this channel and we can do this with this channel, So learning about the gene keys and the human design and self-healing masters and being able to have the tools that we have there, the container that's there for the support, all of that stuff combined is a no-brainer. I mean, it really is. I can't say enough about this space right now and what it has allowed us to keep doing with this work, like just going deeper and learning a little bit more, and again just having the container and the safe space, the environment, with the group is the community is huge. The tribe, I felt very disconnected from the world for a long time, um, both before this work and after, for different reasons. So having that space is it's just really nice. It's very comforting. So
Well, I want to thank you for doing the work yourself and helping so many others because you have done the work and being able to hold that space for other people, because that's the ripple effect. And I'm humbled. It's like I feel so satisfied. If I die today, I am satisfied because the work that I feel like was my call to bring to the world and have it now picked up and moving to others, I'm satisfied. Like that's the word that keeps coming to me. And so I want to thank you for that because it wasn't easy. Your path was not easy. The work we did together was not easy. You've completely turned everything, I mean, your life completely around. And so I want to thank you and
yeah,
recognize and honor the
yeah,
journey and all of it. And also appreciate you helping other people who were like us, the scared little cat with the hair standing up.
yeah,
Anyone who does love us or try to help us with our distrust would What do they want? What do they,
Yeah,
so
what is their reason? It was so hard, I just remember thinking it's so hard to do this. Um, and now I'm like, oh, that's actually just a thought. I have no proof that it was hard,
Mhm.
it was just my perception in the moment. And yeah, and the same, I total gratitude for this work and being able to integrate it in this space, and you dealing with my hard-headed ass and stubbornness. Like, thanks for being a rock star and holding me down, because I know my energy was not easy to deal with. So
It was fun. I'm a death doula, bring on the big cases. I like the deep stuff. All right. So I'm going to hang this up, and anyone who's here who wants to ask questions or
yeah,
talk to Monique, you're welcome to come on.
for
Thank you
sure.
for joining us. And tomorrow we will have Christy. We're going to be talking all about massage therapy again, and the mind-body connection, and empowering other massage therapists.